Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Thursday, March 3rd. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The spring game is in 44 days, the Notre Dame game in 184 days, the game against Michigan in 268 days. We're going back to back with our spring preview shows to make sure that we can fit everything in. Today we're talking running back, and that's a spot where most guys are back, but there's not as much depth as before, which means this is still a big spring for the guys who are here. My guest today is the host of the Big Me Kickoff show, Kevin Noon. Kevin, thanks for being here.
Definitely.
So we will once again, if this is your first podcast, we're kind of doing the same 5 questions for each position group around the field for Ohio State. And the first question is, who is the guy with the most to gain this spring for Ohio State? Because really, there are probably going to be 3 healthy scholarship running backs going into the spring. Treveyon Henderson, Miyan Williams, Evan Pryor. I think the assumption is that Marcus Crowley is still kind of recovering from that knee injury. You've got Master Teague is gone now, and Dallan Hayden is not in this spring. So you've got the 3 scholarship guys this spring. Who among them has maybe the most to gain this spring?
I'm gonna go with Chop. I'm gonna say Mayan Williams. We kind of know what Treveyon Henderson is about. Whether or not they're not going to overtax him. I mean, he's not a 2,000 rep guy or by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, there certainly seemed to be a little bit of a slowdown toward the end of last season. I think team keyed in on him a little bit more. We're going to let him beat you. I think it's a big opportunity for Mayan Williams as you're going to be looking at Ohio State trying to figure out what its pecking order is going to be at running back. And as you mentioned, with only having 3 healthy backs who'll be able to go, with Crowley being dinged up and Dallan Hayden not on campus yet, I think it's going to be really important for Mayan Williams to show what he is capable of doing. I know you can't necessarily carve out your September carries in March and April, but you certainly can limit your carries that you might get later in the season if you don't bring it every day. And I don't think we've ever seen Mayan Williams as somebody who shies away from competition, but how is he going to handle Treveyon Henderson just coming in now, being a true sophomore, being this anointed guy, being on Heisman lists as kind of a dark horse candidate? How's Mayan going to how's he going to respond to it? So I think that it's going to be, that this is going to be an important time for him.
Yeah, this is real opportunity for him because you still have Evan Pryor coming up behind with Marcus Crowley out. There's going to be a lot of questions for Evan Pryor. We'll get to talk about Evan Pryor probably with 1 or 2 of the questions coming up. But yeah, this is a big spring for Mayan Williams because he has a chance to really cement himself where, even if he's not truly the starter, if Treveyon Henderson is the starter this fall, he could kind of be the 1A to Treveyon Henderson's 1, where, maybe he's getting a third of the carries, maybe he's getting 40% of the carries. I mean, could be splitting 50-50. We'll see kind of where he goes. But a lot of that does start this spring. I don't know that there is a true make or break person in this group, and you could kind of pick I guess Mayan Williams for this. Really, it's kind of the person who is a make or break spring for really is not going to be playing this spring, I think, and that's Marcus Crowley. So maybe this is who is this a make or break spring / summer / early fall for, if we want to do that conversation instead.
Yeah, and it's still Marcus Crowley, in my opinion, because he's somebody who's had a couple of catastrophic injuries. I mean, every time he sits there and seems to be able to put it together, something happens. And, let's be quick to say it doesn't appear that he's like somebody who's just fragile or anything. He's just had horrible luck. It just kind of happens. I mean, look at Cameron Babb, look at some other guys at other positions. And Marcus Crowley is somebody who's just not had the opportunity. And you have to wonder if he sits there and you see Treveyon be Treveyon and you see Mayan Williams have a big spring and you see Evan Pryor take a huge step forward, because Evan Pryor, was in the same class as Henderson and was able to do a lot of things, but we saw on one play last year where he had a blocking assignment and he kind of got freight trained out there, and it just showed, okay, maybe he's not physically quite there yet. He needs to spend some more time with Mickey Marotti and the staff to be ready. And then you bring in Dallan Hayden. Where does Marcus Crowley sit? So this is going to be a good opportunity for Marcus Crowley to kind of take an assessment to where he stands and really kind of, see if he's going to check all the boxes, or if, maybe he ends up somewhere else if he doesn't like the answers that he gets. And again, I don't like associating names there, but I think in this case it's fair, and it's not because Marcus Crowley has underperformed or anything else. It's just going to be a room that's suddenly going to be crowded, and you're dealing with a player with dwindling eligibility.
Yeah, and he has the frustrating thing I'm sure for him is that when he's been on the field, he's been pretty productive. He was off to a roaring start in that 2019 season, and then got hurt against Maryland at the end of that game. But he was averaging 7 yards and some change, I think, per carry in that year. So it looked like he was on his way to stardom. He was the Gatorade High School Player of the Year in the state of Florida the year before that. I mean, he was someone they were really high on. And then the injury, and then he comes back and came back late in the 2020 season. And then injury again, last fall, that really kind of puts him behind the 8 ball. So yeah, if he's going to do it, this seems like this is going to be the spring and summer where he's got to kind of make his mark or kind of risk being passed over. This one, I feel like this is probably a fairly easy, and I think will probably be a fairly not uncontroversial question, but who is the star player in the running back room this fall?
Treveyon Henderson? I don't
Who's
know.
he?
Exactly. Some kid out of Virginia. He is, he's the guy. And instead of coming into a season wondering who's going to step into the role, having a veteran guy coming back like Master T going into the 21 season, it's Trevion's game right now at this point. It's just going to be a matter of seeing how another off season treats him, how everything is set up there, what the plans are, because I know for as prolific as the Ohio State's passing offense was, and we talked about it when we were talking about offensive line, some of their short yardage things were not quite up to snuff. So where does he make his big adjustments? Where does he make his big gains? They say that you make huge gains from game 1 to game 2. You make huge gains from season 1 to season 2. Where are those things going to be there? But in terms of superstar potential, I mean, the odds makers have odds for him on the Heisman. I mean, granted, CJ Stroud has much better odds, but people are already buying what Treveyon Henderson can be, and I think he's going to not only meet those expectations, I think he's going to surpass them.
Yeah, he's in an interesting spot because, traditionally you talk to a college football coach, it's like, well, we got to stop the run. You look at this Ohio State football team this year, and it's like, man, if you don't stop the pass, you're going to give up a whole lot of points. So you wonder if teams are going to try and sort of cheat the pass and find a way to get a guy and a half on Jackson Smith and Jigba and try, and maybe that opens things up the way it did in the Tulsa game last year. Tulsa was not going to let Ohio State beat him with the pass, and Ohio State was more than happy to let Treveyon Henderson run for 270 whatever yards. Like that may open up some opportunities for him this fall. That'll be I think there's a lot to be excited about there because he is sort of on his way to a J.K. Dobbins type career progression potentially. So another good spring, another good summer. He could be on his way there. Next one, here's the Evan Pryor question. Kevin, who's the freshman, whether redshirt or true, who you were most excited to see out of this group this spring?
Well, I'm going to say Evan Pryor because obviously Treveyon Henderson is a sophomore. And Evan Pryor, I think Evan Pryor really does a lot of things. He was such a good complementary player to what Treveyon Henderson is, and Treveyon Henderson can catch the ball, but Evan Pryor really can catch the ball. Evan Pryor is somebody who I fully expected to see at least a dozen wheel routes, and we didn't really get there because once again he wasn't quite there physically, and Big Ten football is big boy football, and he wasn't a small dude, but he just wasn't quite ready for the physicality, not getting that final season of North Carolina high school football. I think that there's still a lot that he can do. I think that he's somebody that, it's only year 2 for him, so let's not accelerate the clock too much, but I think it's a big spring for him as well, just to be able to say, I've gone through this for a full year now. I'm coming in on the type of footing that maybe I would have if I would have come out on out of a normal season. So I think it's going to be really important for Evan Pryor to be able to try and stay there and not let the pack move too far away.
Earlier you mentioned his blocking, and I think that's going to be one of the most intriguing things is how does he hold up in that pass pro? Because that's, that every time we talk about the tight ends and the wide receivers, everyone wants to talk about, well, how do they catch the ball? It's like, well, that's not really how the coaching staff makes the decision. And it's not just, can this dude make 2 guys miss in the hole? It is, can he do all the other stuff? Because if you can't pass block, then that limits what they can do with you and what they, how much you're going to be able to be on the field. So I'm going to be very interested to see what does he look like after another winter, a winter workout with Coach Mick, and see where he stands and has he bulked up a little bit, because he didn't need to add 30 pounds, but he needed to add 10 to 15 probably. Was he able to do that to be able to hold up? Because if he did do that and he can hold up as a pass blocker now, I'm with you. Like, I feel like the stuff that Michigan does with Donovan Edwards, where just get him out in space, throw him the ball, and let him just go be in space and, make that one or two guys miss and turn a 3-yard pass into a 70-yard touchdown. He might be able to play that role for Ohio State. And with only 3 guys in this spring, and Dallan Hayden coming in this fall, and Marcus Crowley with who knows how his knee's going to be and how, is he going to be 100%? Like, it feels like there's going to be an opportunity for Evan Pryor to potentially make his impact felt this fall. So last one, biggest concern. What is the biggest concern with the Ohio State running back room right now entering the spring?
I just want to know where the depth is going to come from. Just because we see Treveyon Henderson, and this is more of a Treveyon being so special versus the rest of the room. What does it look like when, you can't sit there and run Treveyon 30 runs a game? So what does that look like? What does it look like when we get further into the season? Did Treveyon hit a wall? Did teams solve Ohio State's running game? Was it a matter of, where did that come from? What are they going to be able to do? Are they going to be able to do what you mentioned there, Tom, in terms of having an Evan Pryor who's going to be able to be that weapon out of the backfield as a pass catcher? What are you going to be able to do to keep teams from trying to key in? Obviously, throwing to Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison, and Emeka Egbuka, so on and so on and so on is one thing, but where is going to be the consistency from this running game? Because we saw games where the running attack was just off the charts, and then we saw games where it was extremely pedestrian. So once again, I think I've taken a shotgun approach to this, and I've kind of hit 12 angles here just because I'm that concerned about getting the right answer.
If there's an injury, if a guy decides, I'm going to hit the transfer portal, you're fairly thin there. I think that has to be a little bit of a concern, where it's not a problem yet, but you can sort of see it from here if, one or two things breaks wrong for them this spring or this summer. So that, I think, is something you got to keep an eye on. It's you want the pair and a spare. They have the pair and the spare, as they say. But it is an area where typically Ryan Day likes to have 4 scholarship quarterbacks. Well, he's got 3 this year. Typically Ohio State, I'm sure, they had 5 running backs last spring that were healthy. Now they've got 3 that are healthy. You've got Dallan Hayden coming in this summer, but how much are you going to rely on a true freshman coming in this fall? They really need to keep those guys healthy and hopefully get Crowley back healthy as well. So thank you again to Kevin for joining me. And if you enjoy hearing Kevin talk about Ohio State football, make sure you check out his Big Me Kickoff podcast. He does at least 1 or 2 of those a week. Always a really entertaining listen. Good show, a lot of fun. And you can find that wherever you find this. Just search for Big Me Kickoff, and you can subscribe right there. And also leave him a 5-star rating and review. I think he's earned it. He does a great job. So leave him a 5-star rating and review, which will help other folks find those shows as well. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.